As people join us from all different parts of the province. It's great to have you here. I will introduce things in a moment, but just before I do, feel free in the chat. We've done this kind of in every session that we've had so far, and so if anyone's new to joining us, welcome, but feel free in the chat to add any comments, questions, introductions, say hi there. And if you have a specific question that you'd like us to ask as part of the session, just look for the question and answer tab. It just helps draw my focus and my attention to that so I can make sure we cover as many of those as possible. So welcome to today's webinar, part of the Level Up series brought to you by the Digital Economy Programme. Today we're looking at the topic of metrics that matter. So deep diving into analytics, data, information as we go through there. Kelly's joining us from Social School. Thank you so much for being here today, Kelly. It's great to have you. But just before I start, I'd like to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we're situated on the traditional territories of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations group, Métis and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages, cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respect to Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land on which we reside. It's a pleasure to bring so many people here for this event, and I'm sure we're going to, it's great on a Friday afternoon. It feels like a nice way to end the week for sure. For those who are here and aren't fully aware of the Digital Economy Programme, I'm just going to encourage you to check out dep.businesslink.ca. You can get there through the BusinessLink website where you signed up for this program to learn more about the two parts of the program that we have. So one, that's Shop Here, powered by Google. And that is a service where you'll have a e-commerce functionality added to your online presence. So you'll work one-to-one with an e-commerce specialist to launch your e-commerce store. And the second part of that is the Digital Service Squad. These are groups of individuals, young people throughout the province who are working one-to-one with businesses on a variety of digital marketing aspects. So whether that's upgrading your social media, looking at things like your Google My Business, there are teams throughout the province who are able to help and support you with that. But dep.businesslink.ca is definitely the place to start. So enough for my advertisement. Hopefully everyone knows that. They've all signed up. So yeah, definitely you can learn more there, but we can kind of get in and I can introduce Kelly from Social School to share her screen and to guide us through the content today.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone. Oh, am I muted? Nope, I'm not. Oh, good. We're off to a good start. We are so thrilled to have you join us on this sunny Friday afternoon, as Matt said. It's sunny in Calgary anyway, and I know that we're coming from all different areas of Alberta and even beyond, which is so cool. Just looking at the chat right now, seeing some of your businesses and even some of your roles or kind of realms. And please feel free to introduce yourselves further if you haven't done so. And I'm going to start us out with a little challenge question here. Today's subject matter, I'm not going to, try and sugarcoat this one. It's like nerdy numbers 101. The importance of the metrics and the data behind our digital content efforts and our social media platforms is so important. That's why you're here. You know this too. But for many of us, myself included, it's not the natural place that we would like to play. I'm not naturally inclined to data or to play with data. I'd rather be creative and pay attention to the front end. But as we often say at Social School and even here at Business Link, we can't forget about our back end. It's so important to see what's working and to improve and iterate what is working and sort of say goodbye to what's not. We've got to pay attention to the numbers. And having had agencies in my past, and worked with small businesses in my current life, and a lot of you as well, we tend to think that something's working well, or we think we know what people are loving from us or what they want. And very often with my clients or our students, we see that it's the opposite, or that in fact, it's this other type of content or certain way that they're doing their videos or their lives or their tweets or whatever it is that are really making a difference. And beyond that, the kind of pages that we're building on our websites or the kind of journeys that we're crafting for people, are they working? Are they actually converting? So before we dive too deeply, I'd love to ask you all, are there any metrics in your business, mostly from a marketing and sales perspective? We're not talking about so much your QuickBooks metrics, but are there any that you're currently paying attention to? Are you, a junkie for your Instagram analytics? Or are you really keen on Google Analytics perhaps and seeing how your website's actually performing, or conversion rates of a certain campaign? Or are you just looking at fans and follows on your Facebook page? Is there anything that you could consider to be a regular part of your sort of data insights on a regular basis? Would be ideal, but even once in a while, if you can pop that in the chat, that would be awesome. It'll help us see, who's playing the numbers game and who's not just yet. But hopefully by the end of today, you'll see a few more kind of ways that you could start to dabble in your metrics and insights. And then of course, the things that you're going to want to go check out and improve on. Awesome. Nola's saying podcast listeners and page views. Very cool. Views and clicks on your Etsy items for Laura. That makes sense. Fans and followers for Janice. Awesome. A lot of us, while fans and followers are important, we're going to look at that today. There's, what we often refer to as so-called vanity metrics. Those are maybe more the surface level metrics that aren't quite as meaningful because they don't lead to conversions. So you're going to hear me talk about those baseline metrics, which are great. They're a good starting point, but then the ones that are actually leading to revenue and conversions, whatever your conversion looks like. There's different definitions of conversion. Sometimes it's an e-commerce sale. Sometimes it's a subscribe. Maybe it's a phone call made, and maybe it in fact is just a click to your website. But chances are it's got to be something deeper than just a like or a comment or even an impression. So we're going to cover all of these things, but we're going to also start with, a general lay of the land of the language and the overarching insights that we can find in our main social platforms. Glad to see some of you are doing Google Analytics, because that is going to be the final piece of today. We're going to dive deeper into those three main metrics or platform insights that I really think we should all consider, which are Facebook Insights, Instagram Insights, and then Google Analytics, which a lot of us are ignoring, or we think we're paying attention, but we're not actually looking at the meaningful items of that platform. So as Matt mentioned, my business is Social School. We've been around for 12 years and we've helped plenty of businesses, or we try to help plenty of businesses, mostly small startups and scale-ups, better tell their online story. And of course, that's the creative side. But then again, over the years, we've tried to focus equally now on the back end as well. And that includes things like digital advertising, SEO, page and content optimization, all things that are really important for a balanced marketing strategy. One of my peeves with agencies, whether you work for one, you're outsourcing to one, you're considering one, is that they're still very much, in my experience and opinion, heavily focused oftentimes on the creative art. So again, that front end. But the more you can ask for or inquire about, the back end, the better for your business and the future of your content. There's nothing worse than having a beautiful Instagram feed that nobody's seeing. Well, why? What do we need to do about that? In the next 4 sessions ahead in this series, we're going to also talk about, of course, digital advertising, website, 101, and some of the other ways to focus on that back end and the digital side or the science side of our art. But for now, we're going to start with of course, social metrics. Okay. So.
Sorry to jump in, Kelly. I just feel that because I see that all the time with small businesses. And I think this is why this idea of metrics that matter is so important, because for small business owners, inevitably the budget is relatively limited, and it worries me or frustrates me. I don't know if that's the right word, when I see people spending money that they don't know what return they're getting, you know, and I know we can't always track perfectly dollar for dollar, but we want to make every effort to be able to, if we're spending $100 on something, what are we going to get back? And finding any way possible to be able to track that, I think is so important for the smallest businesses.
Absolutely. And, you know, whether it's your organic content and how that's performing, or your paid content, which we'll get into in the weeks ahead, you're absolutely right, Matt. It's that old adage, you know, I've said this before to this group, you know, 50% of my marketing's working. I just wish I knew which 50%. And that is like, I mean, you can say that in 1982, but you cannot say that in 2022 anymore. We know exactly what's working if we pay attention. And we have the beauty of these dashboards at our fingertips, or these social platforms that allow us to iterate or double down immediately. We don't have to wait for the radio, you know, sales guy to call us back and say, yeah, you know, that did pretty well 6 months ago. How do you want to proceed? And you're like, well, who did it do well with? And what do you mean by that? And which headline did they like? You're never going to find that information. Whereas we can do that with social and anything kind of digital, which is so exciting. So we really want to be answering some major questions, of course. Who is interacting with our content? What form did that interaction take? That's back to that conversion that I mentioned, if any, or the action. Where did it take place and where does it lead them to? So this is where we get off social and we hopefully draw them to our website, and we want to see our website analytics to see if they stuck around, if it worked, what pages did they view, how long were they on each page? And then of course the when. So is this, you know, early in the morning, on Mondays and Tuesdays? Is it at certain seasons throughout the year? Is it when certain, you know, events are coming? Or is it when we're running a big campaign? You're going to also hear me talk about analytics, analytical insights versus anecdotal insights. And we are not machines. And this is where we have the beauty of combining what we know to be working because we're in it. We know our business. We know the copy we wrote or our team. We know when we posted and why we posted and what other market forces might be working with that content or against it. And that's why we could also then anecdotally say, well, I know why that post performed really well. People love it when we walk down the street with our live streams and welcome them into our store, or when our suppliers or producers show up in our content with Q&As or whatever it is, we tend to get a bump in our traffic. So we've got to combine the two, and you can't just, again, kind of hope that the data insights are going to tell you what to do next. They won't. So the why is the big question, and really this is up to us or our team to try and decipher. It's not difficult. It just, you know, all you have to do is pay attention. So the platforms and the data points to pay attention to specifically. Let's look at our main social platforms and just see some of these, you know, terminology that we actually have to kind of know what they mean. With Facebook, you've heard of reach, impressions, engagement, link clicks, shares. There's others, there's likes and follows, but really we want to think about reach and impressions. And you're going to be asked for this if you ever create a Facebook paid campaign. Do you want your objective, aka goal of this campaign, to be reach or link clicks or conversions or lead generation? For the most part, we're interested, especially at that top of funnel, early stage awareness building stuff when we're a new business in particular, or we're trying to constantly dump new leads into the top of our funnel. It's reach and impressions. It's how many people can we possibly have see our message. Even better if we've already segmented and targeted that message on our key or core audience. So it's not just a billboard talking to everybody, but we want to think about the reach is how many eyeballs we saw that were unique. So how many unique individuals, whereas the impressions, you know, might show that there's 2 or 3 impressions per each of those unique individuals. So it's going to be a bit of a bigger number, but those 2 are really, really important. When we get, you know, positive engagement, we've got actual actions being taken on that content. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward, but those are the main ones we want to think about. When it comes to Instagram insights, of course, similarly, you know, we know comments, likes, shares, but also, again, kind of content balance. So when we talk about variety of our content, where we introduce content pillars, content categories, different content types, single image post, a carousel, a reel, a video, a story. How are we mixing it up, creating variety and kind of that compelling nature to our content that brings people back for more and they can't wait to see what we do next. It leads them in because it's unique and different. It doesn't read like a boring medical journal with the same feature article on every other page. It reads like a cool magazine that's got different types of content every which way with really unique approaches and legible, readable angles to it. Reach rate, impressions, and then the tap forwards and tap backs, that has to do with stories. So if you're doing Instagram stories, the little 24-hour stories that live in the top of the Instagram feed, you can see if people are tapping forward to just get through your stories quickly, or if they're going back to review it again. And that's a pretty powerful story metric to pay attention to, because again, they're going to go back or they're going to save it or bookmark it or return to it if they like it. And want more from you or actually want to take action on that post. When it comes to Twitter, it's pretty straightforward again. Engagement rate, you're going to be told what the rate is of your individual tweets and your account on the whole as a percentage. And then of course your retweets, how many people like what you're saying enough to retweet it from their very own personal account, like what an endorsement that is. We want to aim for retweets just like we want to aim for shares on Instagram and Facebook. Mentions, also powerful, particularly if they're positive and someone is singing your praises as a business and they're, referring or referencing you in their own content. And then of course, link clicks, those meaningful actions that somebody did something with that tweet. And for the most part, most of us are tweeting and maybe we're looking at how many likes it got, but we're not going in to see how many link clicks, what our engagement rate was, and on the whole, whether that's increasing over time. When it comes to LinkedIn, some different forms of what we've spoken about already. So we can dive into the more kind of granular insights on the actual people on our page. And this matters if you're using LinkedIn for prospecting or succession planning and sort of recruiting efforts, but also if you're just using your LinkedIn page, as we learned that we should in an earlier workshop, if you're using it as a business tool to publish content, tell stories, write articles, maybe run ads. But we do still want to know who are we speaking to, and we have the ability to see their job function, their seniority, their impact, pretty much. Like how active are they on LinkedIn, and how much of reach do they have? How can we get them to share our content so that it exponentially grows? So where do we have a spike in page views? This often happens with LinkedIn when, again, someone's running a campaign or they've really got an announcement to make because it's such a business-friendly environment. Clicks per impression goes without saying. It's a bit of a calculation there that LinkedIn does for us. And then shares, again, is a huge kudos to us if we can get that.
Kelly, to get that information, forgive my naive question, do I need to be a paying advertiser on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it might be? Obviously, I can see how many people have retweeted me, but yeah, how do I get that?
Yeah, great question. We're going to look at some of the dashboard insights for both Facebook and Instagram, as well as Google Analytics and where to find that. But across every platform, it doesn't take too much digging. You either go into your profile, maybe your little avatar, or you go into your settings if you have a little gear settings, or sometimes it's in the little 3-bar hamburger. And generally in there, no matter what platform, it'll say something to the line of insights. And that's where we can see what's available to us. Sometimes a desktop view of that platform will give you more than the mobile view will. Some platforms simply have more than others, like Facebook gives you more insights than you ever will know what to do with, especially if you're inside of Facebook Business Suite, where you have like an entire insights dashboard. Ditto, if you're an advertiser, they're going to reward you with, again, infinitely more insights. Whereas on Instagram, you get very few insights. They're just in the app and there's only a few screens to look through. But at the same time, as we're going to see, they're really powerful. Sometimes it's all you need is to see which content is resonating the most and with who. And then again, you form the why for that.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. Obviously, it was interesting. Yeah, I asked the question, and as I asked it, 2 people asked a very, very similar question about kind of LinkedIn. Awesome. And do I need a business account and things like that. So
perfect. Yeah, no, it's that's a very good point, Matt. This is all stuff that is free to us to use. And we're all kind of hung up on just staring at the like count on our post when there's so much more behind the scenes under the iceberg. Right. And then lastly, when it comes to email, open rate, of course, that's a really important one. And people often say, well, what's a good open rate? This is up to you to decide. This is like, it comes from, your experience sending out e-newsletters and knowing what's working and what's not. And a great open rate for you might be 75%, or it might be 7%. If I have a list of 500,000 people because I'm, Nike, then I'm probably going to have a really low open rate. But if I'm just growing my list and I have 200 people on it, I've probably got really engaged friends and families and customer on there that are going to open it. So that's something you need to determine yourself. Don't fall victim to these articles that tell you what a good or bad open rate is. It's just so much about diving in, creating content that you know is resonating, and comparing, A/B testing, different headlines, different content types, different lengths, sending it on different days of the week. These are all things that can make a huge difference. And this isn't related to email open rates or metrics, but when we look at our social feeds, organic content, we're fighting hard for organic or unpaid reach of every one of our social posts, especially on our business pages, only on our business pages. I don't know how many people care if their, dog update got a good reach. But on our business pages, it's not easy to have that free traffic or the free impressions anymore. So we want it to be really, really worthwhile. And it makes a huge difference in some cases, whether you post on a Tuesday afternoon or a Friday morning, or whether it was a carousel or a video. And that will change over time. If there's one thing we know about social, and I'll hear this from my friends who are just full-time digital advertisers with $3 million budgets per customer, what worked last quarter doesn't work this quarter anymore. And that's just because we're all trying out these new features. There's so many new users and pages and, advertisers every month, every week. So that's not to overwhelm you. That's just to say, it gives us all permission to trial and error like crazy, which is actually really fun to try out new features as they become available, because you're going to get higher reach. It's, the new Reels is the new darling feature on Instagram. They want people to use it. They're going to reward you for using it. So early uptake on some of those things, and then just straight up creativity and experimentation on some of the other, things that you see are underutilized features perhaps. And if you go back and you look at, say, some of the workshops we did where we dove into, just the social media workshop we did a few weeks ago, where we looked at what you can do on Facebook. What types of posts are you not seeing very often that get you away from a single image post or just a status update that now are getting more reach just because, again, no one's using those and they need them to be seen. Facebook does. Okay, I'm going to show you 3 different places where we're going to get some deeper insights. As I mentioned, we could go into we could go into 7 different email clients and see how they do their insights, but it's up to you to determine what your key platforms are and then get to know the insights available to you in them. But since most of us are on Facebook, Instagram, and the internet with a website, we're going to look at those 3, Google Analytics being the 3rd, a little more deeply. So where do we find our Facebook insights? Well, this is different for a few of us because, funny thing, a lot of us have different little features on our pages. So depending on whether I set my business page up as a nonprofit or a retail store or a foundation, whatever it is, I might have different links and I might have things in different places in my menu. It is what it is. But for the most part, it shouldn't be too hard for you to find insights somewhere on your page, whether you're using it as, facebook.com/my business name, or you're accessing your page through Facebook Business Suite, which is business.facebook.com. And that's that gray window that we often talk about with far deeper tools and insights available to you. Either way, the word you're looking for is insights. You're going to see an overview. Basically, a snapshot of your page performance, your content performance, your audience, your reach over the last probably month. Actions, views, engagement, all these things that could matter to you, some more than others, in an at a glance type of view. I really love to focus on organic versus paid because that's where we like to play. If we're on our game at my business, we're boosting every post and we're running paid campaigns. And I sure as heck want to see how my paid campaigns perform, but also how my paid campaigns give a lift to my unpaid or organic content. And it happens all the time, which is another reason to pay to play. So followers goes without saying, but I really like where we can benchmark things and we can see sort of where we're winning and losing fans along the way. And that speaks volumes to, yes, your content, but probably also your consistency. And then a few different things, how am I showing up for these people when I do show up? Has my content over time gotten really static or boring, or does it need to evolve? And do I need to see what kind of trends are out there? Be a voyeur on the internet as to what other content's really resonating with people and try some of that. Likes, I'm not going to go too deep into likes. It's the same kind of thing, but again, we can see it weekly, monthly, quarterly. We want to generally see an increase, but don't get too hung up on page likes. Again, we want it to grow, but we're going to lose people along the way, just like you follow and unfollow pages too. But if you do see big drops or spikes, pay attention. As I mentioned, the reach is individual users reached. So not multiple views from the same person. And then of course, we want to see how this is being effective. And right there, you can see that in this particular month, we ran a paid campaign. So of course our reach spiked, and I can go find deeper data on all of who they were, how long they stuck around, et cetera, what it cost me in my ad manager. Page views, much like it sounds, if this was our website, we're going to see how many people visit our so-called Facebook business page and what actions they took. So if I have any calls to action on my page, on your Facebook business page, you can add a learn more or call now or message us. There's all sorts of call to action options now for us. And if any of those take place, you're going to see them. One of my favorite views here is posts, where we can see throughout the week, when our fans come online, what time of day, what day of the week. If there's something really kind of obvious there that you may want to play with, go for it. If your fans heavily come online on the weekend, or if you think, everyone's starting to come online 6 a.m. onto Facebook, my business page can reach them at that time. Maybe I want to try 4 a.m. Maybe I want to be in the dark hours where there's less traffic on the highway and I can play in the wee hours, so to speak. And then really importantly, I can take a closer look and I can see sort of how my content post by post actually performed. When I'm doing my job, and so is my team, and we're following our own rules of boost every post, even if it's for $5, because a $200 a month boosting strategy is the way you complete the full circle content marketing strategy that you've got. Otherwise, you're taking pains to create this beautiful content, copy and imagery and video and strategy, and then you're not actually telling anyone about it. So we try to boost every single post. And you can see that when we do that one little square there that says boost or view the promotion, I'm willing to guess we put $10 or $20 behind that for either 3 or 4 days. And right away we have just a huge reach spike. 2 drop downs at the top of this view are really important here, and I love these. So the first one is organic versus paid, which is the default, but I can also see fans versus non-fans. Again, like, why wouldn't I want to reach people that don't know about me yet? And, if there's a way for me to do that with some promoted content, great, but it's also just a really interesting metric to look at. And the second drop down on that menu is things like engagement. So is it clicks, reactions, comments, and shares you want to see? Is it post hides if you were annoying or whatever, overwhelming? Engagement rate, reactions, etc. So really kind of neat, especially if you're just starting out, when you're working with a new agency or a new team member, or even just yourself. Okay, is it my video content that's resonating this month? Is it my, again, single image posts, links? Like, what is working here? And we can all lament over the fact that we've seen these numbers drop over time. It's absolutely true, but that's the nature of the beast. There are, almost 3 billion monthly active users on Facebook. There's a lot of competition, and there's many, many posts that you could be seeing at any given time as a user. So we have to, that algorithm is going to filter it. And overall, our reach has gone down over the years, just like we knew it would. But that doesn't mean you can't do great things, especially if you're paying attention. Matt, I'm going to let you weigh in before we go to Instagram. Just a few more things here on Facebook. So if you're running events, this is just like it sounds. The kind of events where you sell tickets or you just invite someone to a webinar or whatever it is. not to be confused with pixel events, which is confusing, but that's a deeper piece of Business Suite. But we can see how those performed. Video gets its very own tab inside of our Facebook Insights for good reason. If you're posting any kind of video, whether it's short or long, or even a Facebook story, if it's a story video, you're going to see how it did. And this is because we know the power of video is real and they want us to create more of it. And then, of course, when we look at people, the thing that I want to point out here is that this is a limited view of our audience. This is people that we're reaching on the Facebook. This is not a grand picture of our customer base. We get a better grand picture on Google Analytics, where, you know, my dad who's not on Facebook, or our customers over in whatever, or the younger audience that isn't on Facebook, they're going to find us on our website. That's the broader snapshot we want. But of course, we also still want to know who and where the followers or fans of our content are coming from on Facebook. And then we have to decide, do I double down and just create content that's geared towards women or a certain age demographic because I know that's who's really resonating? Or do I try and, you know, reach and build my audience that I'm not reaching so much, like the male audience or whatever it is? Maybe I want to run a campaign and just target men because I want them to, you know, discover us and even that out a bit more. And then finally, the messages piece. So as we know, generally our Facebook Messenger account is connected to our business page. Facebook owns Messenger, but they almost appear to be the same when you're in your business page. And you can connect your Messenger right to your page and have someone reach you right from it. And if you are doing that, you're going to have a snapshot of those messaging connections right from your Facebook Insights. Any thoughts, Matt?
No, but I think it's great that you gave some of those like practical applications as to what you use this data for, you know, like how it helps that decision making. It's great because it's awesome to have all these volumes of data available to us, but you kind of put on there as, okay, what do I now do with it? And like, that's it. I can double down on a certain group, or, you know, the one thing that I see quite often is people don't know the challenge they're facing. The data can be useful. Like often people say, I'm just struggling to make sales. And when you have the conversation with them, okay, so what, like, what's your, what rate are you making sales at? Oh, most people I speak to do convert. Okay, well, it's not sales. The problem is somewhere else. Like maybe it's at the top of your funnel. That's where you're not having enough people coming into the process. And so, yeah, it's just really useful to have that data so you can see, okay, what do I need to focus on?
Totally.
I think,
yeah, absolutely. And to know, and I actually just saw Lori's question there too in the Q&A about, is there such a thing as having too many platforms? And right away, you know, further to what you're saying, Matt, like if you're not able to properly run, manage, and garner insights on a certain platform or all of your platforms, then the answer is probably yes, too many platforms. I was going to use the analogy of if you have too many kids, you're not going to pay attention to some of them, but that's terrible. But like anything, if we can't actually, you know, properly utilize them, are they going to do more harm than good? And the answer I think could be very much yes. So given that, you know, best practice of a certain platform would be use it regularly, create content that your audience wants to hear and that's going to add value to their lives or their day, and then garner insights from that content engagement or those actions taken so that you can create more of that and drive revenue. None of us, I don't think, have the luxury of just creating content to create content. We want to drive people to our websites, our checkout pages, our subscribe button, our, you know, email contact form, and essentially have a growth on the whole, not just in our followers and fans. So I am the first person to say less is more when it comes to the volume of content you're creating, because it's more important to get it seen than it is to churn out posts every 5 minutes. And then likewise, less platforms is more if you can't really leverage each one properly.
Perfect. And Kelly, this question that's actually in the chat, and I thought this may come up because I was thinking to myself, and it says, question about boosts. I had heard not to do that as it boosts to people who are not necessarily your target market. Yeah.
Oh, such a good question and such a loaded one. I'll try not to talk about this for days because I could. But you guys, we're going to be talking more about promoted content in our very next session when we get into social selling. For now, what I will say is that boosted posts, especially if you're doing it in the lazy way, which we're going to talk about next 2 weeks from now, which is the blue button from your feed, boost post. Well, Facebook is literally going to steal your money and run if you haven't previously created the audiences that you want to target with that boost. There's no better way to waste money than saying, sure, $20 for 5 days and boost it to women who live in Edmonton and have a dog. Like, there is literally zero strategic targeting done with that, and your content wasn't created with that group in mind. So I often say, yes, you need to boost your content if you can. And if you can't, I would say spend less on photography, graphic design, and coffee if it means that you can put a bit of money behind a few posts each month to get it seen. I'm working with a new business right now. We have 112 Instagram followers. I'm like, that's it. We've got to build up our fan base, our follower count, so that we can actually reach people with our organic content. And we're going to do that through a page likes campaign, but also paid ad campaigns and boosted content that we strategically built a bunch of audiences for yesterday. That's step one. And then, of course, there's a lot of ways that we waste time and money in our businesses, and boosted content, if not done properly, is one of them, but so too is not boosting it at all.
That's awesome. I think that was the point. I think it was really a question on like that tempting boost now for $2 button.
Yeah. And then the classic thing that people will say to me is, well, it's not working. I've tried boosted content or I've tried paid campaigns. They're not working. And the first question I'll ask is, how's your targeting? How's your audiences? Are they dusty? Are they strategic? Are they, warm, cold, hot audiences? So yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can go about doing it. Really, it's not cheap anymore, but it is very powerful if done right.
Perfect. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so let's look at Instagram Insights. If any of you open up your Instagram business page, which I know we all have, possibly, you're going to see that little hamburger at the top. That's our menu that we can go on into and find our insights right away. You're going to get a very clear and tight overview as to how your content's performing in the last 7 days. Instagram is kind of limited in the timeframes that it allows you to look at and some other things, but they did that on purpose. This website or tool is meant to be so dead easy that any business can use it. It's a business building tool. Remember, Instagram is in business to make money from us because we're going to use the tool and then advertise on it. And as a user, if we put on that hat, I'm there to be entertained. And so when that business shows up, it's going to be content that actually makes sense for me. It's what is going to add value to my life. It's the kind of things I want to follow and engage with. And it's all a very simple moving process. It's not meant to be complicated. But we can absolutely see our reach again in Instagram and compare it to the previous period. So right away, we're benchmarking. The other thing about this whole 7-day window, or these very tight and simple high-level data points, is that it's meant to be viewed frequently. This isn't some overwhelming data set that's going to take 10 minutes to download into a giant CSV file for you and your team. This is like, just stay top of mind, check in on it regularly, see what's working, and in real time, gather that data and apply it to your next week's post or your next day's post. Interactions, obviously really important, because remember, engagement is one of our top metrics that we want to pay attention to. If you've got, a whole lot of content that nobody cares about, you're not hitting the mark. We need to actually find the people that want to engage with us, talk to us. Those are like handshakes or conversations in store. And then we know that if we do our job and we engage authentically and with the kind of answers that they want or the kind of conversations they're excited to have, they're going to shop from us. They're going to refer us. They're going to come back. They're going to trust us, like us, want to buy from us. So interactions are so important. Followers, sure, but for the reasons I described earlier, don't get too hung up on your follower count. It is good to have a baseline of followers so you're not speaking to no one. But we're all going to lose and gain followers along the way. I'm sorry to say that gone are the days where any of us could fire up an Instagram account tomorrow, create some really beautiful posts and compelling content, and have 100,000 fans or followers by next week. It just doesn't happen anymore. There's too many of us on the platform, but that's okay. Slow, steady growth, quality content, powerful, conversations and engagements is what we want to aim for. We want to show or see our post performance and which kind of posts perform the best. This is where we start to get a little bit of a broader time frame. Last month, last year, we can stretch that out a little bit. And we can just sometimes surprisingly see what people liked the most. This is where we always laugh at what we thought they'd like versus what they actually really liked. And there's some very cool metrics here that we can look at. For example, of course, we can see the reach that we had, but also interactions, impressions, email button taps. So how many people actually, clicked on the read more button or saved it, shared it, really powerful action type engagements. And then again, some of those post performance specifics, if we want to go in even deeper to a specific post to see just how it did and what it did. I encourage you to check out your highs and lows, your best performing post, your lowest performing post, and chances are you'll be a little bit surprised by what you see.
And Kelly, sorry, just to ask the question. So without paying to advertise, I can still see this. If I'm a business, if I'm a business, I can still see. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Just a quick question, kind of connected. And I think you are kind of talking to this. How do I target the audience I want to post to? You pay, hey? Yeah.
Yeah, you pay. No. Okay. So there are some platforms like LinkedIn. I want you to go in when you're going to post something on LinkedIn, you will see that you can do some very baseline targeting of a certain group in there. So they're giving you this sort of like somewhat of a targeted organic post. But for the most part, you're posting to your fans and you're posting to your followers in Facebook and Instagram. Or sorry, other way around. Followers on Facebook, fans on Instagram. No. Anyways. So what we need to do is try and grow that fan base if we don't want to pay. The problem is, as we know, that organic reach has declined. We will talk all about this in 2 weeks' time at our social selling workshop. But organic reach means how many of those fans and followers are actually going to see your content. So I'm just going to give you an example. You have 1,000 fans and your organic reach is 10%. So that means that only 100 of those 1,000 fans are even going to be served up that post, any content that you create in their newsfeed. And then, you think, okay, and that, by the way, 10% organic reach would be massive. Coca-Cola is at like 0.01%. Most business pages are at like 2 or 3% organic reach. This is why everybody started crying foul a few years ago, but it was like, well, what did you expect? Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, they've built these free platforms for you to create beautiful content with all these neat features and tools to reach all your audience, but they can't do it for free forever. So that's why now we're in this pay to play. But back to the organic example, let's say I have 10% reach, amen, I'm doing well. And only 10% of those people actually do something with this. So now 10 out of 100 or really out of 1,000 have liked, engaged, done something with that post. That's where people start to pull their hair out. They're like, this is garbage. I'm out. This is a waste of time. No one's going to my website. No one's buying. We're not doing social anymore. So, on the flip side, if I was to put $20 behind a post and I'm only doing, 20 social posts per month on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, well, that's a $400 boosting budget on Facebook, for example, per month. I know that sounds like a lot, but scale it back if you like. And now I'm reaching non-fans. So my reach goes up to, 40,000 per post. And 77% of those accounts are people that didn't know about me before. So it's strategic, it's long-term. You can't just do it once in a while and then not actually carry it through, or what's the point? But it does start to make a big dent. And this is business development. It's not just paid advertising. This is BD and sales. And if you can't reach more people, whether through a trade show, whether through sales calls, whether through paid content, or at least higher reach of non-fans and followers, then you're kind of static, right? So I think we have to see it that way. One thing that I will say about the metric right in front of us here on the screen is actually a post that did really well for us. What it's saying here, this is not a paid post, but it did reach a whole lot of non-fans. So in fact, 77% of the people reached by this post weren't already following us. How does that happen? Kelly's lying to us because I thought we had low organic reach. Well, what happens when a post is funny or fun or goofy or viral or whatever, when it does well, Facebook or Instagram in this case is like, oh, this is a good post. Let's serve it up to more people because we need to create the kind of new content that they haven't seen yet or that's doing well elsewhere. It's why you see a lot of content from people that you're not following, that probably aren't promoting it or boosting it. It doesn't say promote it. Well, that's just because it's a post that's doing really well. That's, again, in Instagram's best interest to serve to more people so they stick around the platform longer. If you and I only ever see people that we follow and advertisements that are kind of lame and spammy, we're not going to stick around Instagram. We're going to head over to Snapchat. So anyway, that's the kind of viral content that you will get high organic reach on. Sometimes it'll surprise you. I didn't find that post that funny, but hey, what do you know? So yeah, the idea here is to constantly iterate and find creative ways to reach your audience, and then it'll go further than your audience sometimes. And then also start to think about a paid budget. Okay. You guys, this is where I wanted to get to. Any thoughts before we dive into Google Analytics for the final 15 minutes or 10 minutes here, Matt?
No, but I want to give my quick Google Analytics anecdote. When I first started my business, so I've said it before, I had a cleaning business in London, and I remember having no customers, but you could see who was live, how many people were live on your website at that moment, couldn't you? I remember, like, I used to sit there and see like there was one person live and kind of wait for my phone to ring, kind of in excitement.
That's awesome.
I probably should have been doing things that were more productive to get clients, but I just thought it was amazing. That was maybe 12 years ago. Yeah.
No, it's incredible. You're right. And there are ways that you could literally figure out how to reach them, like send an ad to them in the next hour. It happens to all of us, but so many of us think, well, that's for a big sophisticated Walmart. They know how to retarget or remarket to people, and follow me around the internet. No, any of us can do that with a simple Facebook pixel or a Google pixel that is added to our website, sends that information back to Facebook about your IP address because you were just on my website, and now I'm running a Facebook ad to you within the next few hours. Hey,
those small
that you love that?
We've got something this week on the Digital Economy or in the last couple of weeks. So we have the Digital Economy Program website, which lots of people have been to, and our marketing company suggested we try a chatbot on there to gather some leads so we can connect people with the program. And I was kind of skeptical. I was like, yeah, you can. Like, we've got other priorities before we do that. The impact that has had on the number of leads that we've generated is just crazy. Like, amazing. We had to up our subscription with the chatbot, and and it was only the data, that helped us realize that. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, I'll let you.
Okay. Well, we're rounding the corner here, you guys. So the one thing that I often hear about Google Analytics is that, yeah, I'm using it. I think that I'm using it. I know my page views. But when we ask them, do you actually go in and look for deeper data? And I'll be guilty of this myself. The answer is usually no. So I'm going to show you 3 key areas of Google Analytics. And if you haven't set it up yet, analytics.google.com. And, it can be a really powerful tool to add to the mix. And it can be, honestly, your one and only insights kind of place to play. Sure, glance at Facebook, glance at Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, but come into Google Analytics and see how your website's performing. Because as you've heard me say many times through these workshops, the end all be all, the last bastion where we want people to go to should be our website. Just as Matt said, they get to the site and that chat bot is like, that's the final place where people are ready to take action. Their customers or prospects at that point are yours to lose. Business Link or any organization has done their homework. They've done their job by powerfully posting on social, running brilliant webinars, having lots of, impact and touch points in the community, digitally, physically, to get people probably not to their store. They don't have one, to my knowledge, and they probably don't want thousands of people banging on their office door. It's get to my website. And again, what can we do to ensure that when they get there, they have the optimal experience and they take the actions that they want to take and that we want them to. So first things first, audience, who they are, where they live, what they like, and how they move through our site. This is like data 101. I pulled my, you can toggle through whatever time frame you like. Again, just a note about setup here. I will say there are endless amounts of videos on the internet about how to set up your Google Analytics. If you are able to go through google.analytics.com and seamlessly just connect to your Google account, and then, activate your free Google Analytics site, great. It's going to tell you your 10-digit GA pixel, and you're going to have to put that on your website. So if it's Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, even just Google that, how to add my Google Analytics tracking pixel to a Squarespace website, or where do I add it? There'll be videos for that too. It should be a very simple copy paste install. Now that pixel starts firing. Every time I land on your website, it is capturing my data, or what my active use of your site, where I go, where I'm coming from, and it's sending that back to GA. It's going to shim a lot of data. Google Analytics can't send me your name and phone number, but it's going to tell me where you live and how old you are, like a few pretty key things. It's really cool. And rest assured, it's all legal as well. So if we're not doing this, we're just missing out on so much useful information. And again, as you can see, this gives us a much broader snapshot of our audience than Facebook Insight does in the people section. Good to have both, but this is the primary place we should be going. I know this is a small screen here, but hopefully you can see it. I've even got my glasses on and I can barely see it. But what we've got there are some things like benchmarking. So I know that within my audience section, I can see the channels that people are coming from. Is it organic search? Is it paid campaigns? Is it just referral? So in my e-newsletter, I referred a link to my site, or I included a link to my site. They come there from email, or they come there from my email signature, or somewhere else on the internet, referral traffic. What we want to grow is our organic traffic, of course, right? I don't want all of this to be in the paid, but either way, I know I'm just skimming these high level, but this is your invitation to set up Google Analytics and wait till that pixel starts firing for a few weeks or months, and then see how your site is doing. So again, we could look at, there's plenty of information in the geography area, language, origin, gender. But then what I love is the one on the right, user flow. And we can see this both in, that audience view, as well as in some of the other upcoming views, acquisition and behavior. But in user flow, I can see where they landed, what page they went to next, and where they bumped off. And I will tell you that when I saw this several years ago, and I saw that on average, it was taking people 12 steps to get to my checkout page, I just about, slammed my head through a wall, but then I realized something had to change, because that's not what any of us want. There's a classic, case study about how when Amazon introduced one-click checkout, nobody trusted it. We were like, what the heck is this? I shouldn't be at checkout so fast. This is a scam. They had to literally go back and create a few other security roadblocks along the way. Well, now we're all used to one-click checkout. In fact, I love ShopPay because it stores my credit card when I make late night terrible decisions on Pinterest purchases or whatever it is. So we want to get to our goal fast when we land on your site. And I want it to be dead simple and clear when I'm there, so I'm not lost, because we all know that's the fastest reason to bounce. We're going to talk a lot about Website 101 best practices on user flow, navigation, and just overall website, again, practices in our upcoming lab on websites. But for now, I want you to really think about this kind of stuff on a high level. And if you have this data already, awesome. The second piece here is acquisition. So again, where are they coming from as opposed to who they are, audience. So this is deeper insights into that, the traffic sources. We can dive right into see, well, in fact, it's social. Well, which social? And if I'm using something called UTM tags, urchin tracking mechanisms, which is that longer tag, next time you're on the internet, I want you to look in the URL after you click on something. So I'm following that pair of UGG boots from the Bay. And when I click on it, I see there's a question mark behind the bay.com/women's fashion or women's shoes /question mark. And then there's a whole lot of tracking code. Well, that was built in a UTM tag builder. A tag is just a lengthy link. And it's got all sorts of information that is going to send it back to Google Analytics. And now the Bay doesn't just know, or their marketing team, what channels are driving traffic. So Facebook's driving 50% of our website traffic. Holy crap. No, actually this very post drove 42% of that traffic, or this campaign, or this, webinar. So we can get deeper into that. But first things first, we've got to have an idea of, again, the sources that are working for us at different times throughout the year and how those sources are performing. When someone comes from Instagram, are they a qualified lead? Do they stick around for long, or is there less happening from that channel? If they're coming from my e-newsletter or a webinar page, are they more educated and, funny enough, lead to higher conversion rates? Well, that might be a reason to do more webinars, or to just take Instagram with a grain of salt. I know that it's traffic building, but those are not my key shoppers. So really interesting stuff here. Finally, behavior. So what do they do when they arrive? What pages and content do they interact with? And what deeper actions do they take? And then what I really love is how my site is performing. So on that far side, or actually in the middle and on the far side, we've got just an overview, and then as well, site load speed, page dwell time. I'll say that again, load speed, dwell time. Those are two massive SEO factors. We'll talk about that in the websites workshop. But how long someone stays on your site and your pages is a huge indication to Google of your site's relevancy, authority, and thus search ranking. It's going to reward you. You'll move up the search rankings. If every time someone lands on your site, they bounce within 5 seconds, bouncing means they didn't take another single action. They didn't click, they didn't follow a lead, they didn't go to another page, they bounced. Well, that's a terrible ranking factor. You're going to be penalized. Likewise, if they only stick around for 10 seconds while traversing your page, they're like, this isn't for me, I'm out. So we want to lead them there, and then we want to hold them. We want dwell time to be high. And we can see in some cases, certain pages that have incredible dwell time, certain pages that have terrible load speed because you accidentally put a photo in the top banner that was like 3 megabytes, or a video embedded that's a gig, and you're like breaking your website. So these are all important for user experience, UE, but also for SEO. So I hope that gets you excited about Google Analytics. The final piece on this is conversions. If you want to set up goals, you can do that too. So a goal for me is they land on my homepage, they go to my training page, they check out, and they get to the thank you page. That would be a goal journey. And I can measure that conversion, and I can even put a dollar value to it. So if you want to get super granular and nerdy, you can definitely do that. I will wrap up just by saying that the thing we want to do next when we have this data is to analyze our content. Again, we want to think about the why, and we want those analytics to meet the anecdotal insights, because we are the best judge of why that page is working, or based on what we're hearing, and we're asking other human beings, does this tagline make sense? What do you think of this homepage? Did you like that content? Or what do you think of this campaign? We're looking at our top performing posts and our bottom end pages. We're looking for patterns and seeing how we can, of course, learn from that, and straight up do more of what's working and less of what's not on the whole. Last thing I'll say is that we want to focus on growth and just compare. So if we know, you don't have to be taking meticulous records, or, at agencies, we're constantly pleasing our clients by creating these massive reports. And sometimes I'm like, we should be just focusing instead on more time spent creating brilliant content and quick, regular reports on the metrics that matter, not everything. And then, of course, incorporating those ideas as to what we're going to do next, what we're going to do with that data. There's 3 very simple exercises for you to do if you like in the workbook. And this is just your chance to benchmark. So what have been your highest performing posts on Facebook and Instagram? And then as well, if you're doing Instagram stories, and then, insights you can garner from that. What are they? And maybe ask your team as well, and how you can kind of grow from there. I'm so generous. I left you 1 minute for questions.
Yeah, it's okay, because I think kind of the questions that I have been kind of dealt with. I mean, one was, how do we know when is best to post because our past success is related to specific content that went out? I mean, it's that point, isn't it, of it's relative to what you have done, so, and you're only going to know it by testing it, aren't you? Like, if it's going to sit on your desktop, you're not going to find out. You've got to do that. And do you pay to play on Instagram and Facebook together, or is each boost specific to each platform?
You can choose. You can automatically allow Facebook to boost it everywhere it can, or you can say, nope, I want to just specifically boost this on Instagram, or just on Facebook, or just on Audience Network, which is their third-party websites. So you have a lot of options there. That's
awesome. Thanks so much. And as that just ticks over to 2 o'clock, I'm just going to do a final quick reminder that much of this, if you don't have that someone there with you, it can be overwhelming. So the digital service squads, that is what they do. They, virtually stand shoulder to shoulder with you and can support you in doing this. And if they don't have the right answer then and there, they can go away, find it, and continue to work with you on it. So yeah, there's definite benefit to getting signed up for at dep.businesslink.ca for that. And a quick trail to the next workshop, and thanks for going on to this, on March 10th, with social selling, leveraging powerful social tools to further your e-commerce success. So yeah, thank you again, Kelly, for joining. This feels, everyone has my permission to finish the week early. It's 2 o'clock. I know I'm speaking to small business owners who will be working all through the weekend, and they'll be kind of laughing as I say that. But if you can skip out early, skip out early. Thanks, Kelly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.